Perfect.
Great.
You know.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. Just to let you all know, we are recording the session, and we have Sarah here doing some BSL, and we've switched on translations and closed captions as well. So hopefully everybody can access the information that we'll be talking through. My name is Mia. I'm the curator and program manager at A Space Arts. We're a visual arts charity based in Southampton. I'm a woman in my early 30s. I have shortish brown hair with a fringe, and I've got some small gold earrings on and a very thick white cardigan because it's very cold in my house, despite the fact the heating is on full bore. Um, so I'm going to pass over to my colleague James, who's just going to say a short introduction as well.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, I'm James. I work on the programs team, but tonight I'll be looking out for questions in the chat. So if you have questions, then feel free to pop them in the chat. But we will be also just pausing to check all the screens of everyone. So if you aren't able to use the chat, then just pop up a hand when we are when we stop sharing the screens. Um, and just to say that I'm a white man, I'm in my mid 30s. I've got round green glasses on, slightly scruffy hair, and a green jumper and a blue turtleneck.
Great. Thanks, James. So tonight I'm going to talk through the artist brief for the Access Commission at God's House Tower, and we'll look through the document together. But before I do that, I thought it might be useful for us to share some images of God's House Tower with you so that anybody who hasn't been to the building can kind of have that in mind while they're, thinking about the commission. We're not able to do sort of longer visual descriptions tonight, just because of timing. But if you would like some further visual descriptions of the buildings and of the images that we're sharing, please do get in touch. Towards the end of the session, or send me an email or give me a call, and we can book in a sort of one-to-one meeting where I can kind of describe some of the images that we'll be sharing. James, would you just share those
You
photos?
need to come and look at these photos.
I can talk through. Great.
Hi there. Can I just say very quickly, I might need to leave early, and I'm not able to access the pictures, so it would be great to have a catch up about that another time.
Yeah,
Thank
fantastic. Sorry,
you.
I can't see who's speaking.
It's Holly.
Oh,
Holly.
hi Holly. Yes, you
Yeah.
emailed me before. I
Cheers.
will
Okay.
yeah, I'll get in touch with you via email and
Okay.
we'll set up a call next week.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Great. So this image that we're looking back at is of God's House Tower, and it's a building in sort of three parts. The bit on the far right of the image is the tower, and we've got a permanent heritage exhibition in the tower, which is across 4 floors, which tells the history of the building and of the old town, the old medieval town in Southampton. You can go up onto the roof of the tower, and there's great views across the city. And we have a flagpole as well. And these spaces, even though currently there's a sort of permanent heritage exhibition installed in there, you can use those spaces for this commission. We're kind of open to people potentially exhibiting things within those spaces. We've used the pole in the past, for example, to strap artworks to or to fly a flag. So there's kind of options for ways in which we can use the tower. But I will talk a bit more about that and the other spaces in a moment. On the far left-hand side of the building is the Crawford Room, which is above, sorry, an archway, and that's got a beautiful sort of hammer beam ceiling, but it's not actually accessible. So it's not a space we'll be using for this commission. And then in the middle, we have the kind of main part of the building, which is a cafe on the ground floor, and then two gallery spaces in the what we call the project space above the cafe, and then we've got the main gallery, which is at the very top of the building on the third floor in the middle. So the image you can see now is of the front doors of God's House Tower. So people approach the building from the front, walk in the front, and they encounter the welcome desk. and then you can either go right at the desk and up through the tower and out through the exhibitions, or you can take a left and you can go straight up into the free exhibition spaces that we have. The tower costs £5, so some visitors do the full route and other visitors just go straight up into the gallery spaces. So this is the main gallery. So this is the kind of main site for this commission. It is a big, bright, airy space. There's windows all along one side of it. It's kind of, the ceilings are quite high, and there's parquet flooring, and there's these old medieval walls. So it's a really beautiful space with some restrictions. We can't kind of hang things directly onto the walls. But we do use the ceiling a lot to kind of hang things down, or we quite often have kind of freestanding artworks or freestanding exhibition displays, as well as using the back wall to mount things. So at the back of the gallery, you can kind of see this large white wall. Behind there is some storage. So there's a door which you can kind of see the edges of, which opens out so that we can access those spaces, which is where we store our kind of AV equipment and various other gallery things. So that's the main gallery. So that was looking at one end. This is now looking the other direction. So we're looking back down the gallery. You can see the lift in the middle and a staircase that runs around the lift down to the other two floors. You can see a fireplace on the left-hand side, and there's quite a lot of alcoves and windows, which do provide quite an interesting, sites and places for artworks as well. So it could be something to keep in mind. I might take a bit of a pause just to see if anybody has any questions about this main gallery space or anything that I've kind of already spoken about.
Can I just check, at the moment, you've got, because I obviously can't see your photos because I'm blind, the gallery space you're discussing, is that the one which has the Jane Austen, or is it the one that's got the contemporary? I'm trying to work out what's in it at the moment.
It's the contemporary space. So
okay,
yeah.
So the one with the cushions on the floors and the knees and the feet and things.
Yes, yeah, that's what's currently showing there. Yeah, the Jocelyn McGregor Commission. The main gallery is sort of almost always used for the Contemporary Commission when we have one on. The project space, which you just mentioned, which is where the Jane Austen's travelling writing desk is at the moment, that can be used for commissions, or it is quite often used in the way that we're currently using it, which is as a kind of space for contextual heritage exhibitions, or a resource room or a reading room. It's kind of a multi-use space, that one. But yeah, the space that we're just looking at was the main gallery.
Nothing can be put on the walls?
Not in the main gallery, no. But they can in the project space.
Okay.
Is it possible to project onto any of these walls, or is it too light a space?
It is quite light. The projections, it depends. If you're looking to project something that people can kind of see clearly, it's too bright. But we have done projections in here which are quite subtle to cause kind of some visual effects and things across the stones. But yeah, it's too bright really for projection. Having said that, we have had an exhibition in the past where we've blacked out the gallery space and we've covered all these windows up. It was a lot. It was a lot of work, and it was really kind of time consuming and a bit difficult, but we can do it. So if you have an idea that you want to realize where this space is blackened out, you can, feel free to pitch it. And I think if it's something that we're excited by, then we probably would, we would kind of make sure we had enough time to get that done before we installed. So it is possible, but it is, it can be a bit of a challenge.
We've just got a question about which spaces are wheelchair accessible.
So this space, the main gallery, is wheelchair accessible. The project space is wheelchair accessible, and the ground floor where the cafe is also accessible. The Crawford room, which I mentioned, isn't, and the rooms in the tower aren't either. the tower exhibition, we have some 3D scans of the space, and we have kind of VR headsets, so people can sit in the cafe and kind of explore those spaces virtually. But yeah, the main rooms that we'll be using for the for the commission is the main gallery and the project space, and both of those are serviced by this lift that you can see in this image.
Sorry, I was just wondering how big is the project space and how big is the main gallery space, and what sort of the height from the floor to the ceiling, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So this is the main gallery. The space that we're looking at is kind of 8 meters long. So from where we're standing looking to the lift is about 8 meters, and it's about 5 meters across. And the height from the floor to the beams is also 5 meters. The project space, perhaps just if there's any more questions about the main gallery, maybe when we move on to the images of the project space, I can kind of give you dimensions if that's okay.
That's absolutely perfect. Thank you so much.
No worries. James, are there any more questions while we're on the main gallery?
There are. Sorry, I was trying to unmute. How noisy is the space? For example, can you hear the cafe below?
Its sound doesn't travel up as much as it travels down, I would say. When we have sound installations or films in the main gallery, quite often you can hear that from downstairs, but it's only really by the entrance and the edge of the cafe. I think as soon as you go into the middle of the cafe, the sound doesn't travel sort of that far. You can hear bits of the cafe, I would say, but it's not kind of really loud or noticeable from the main gallery. And it depends what time of the day it is, but it might be kind of louder on a Saturday lunchtime. On a Thursday and Friday, you probably won't hear much cafe noise at all. Any other questions, James?
Yes, sorry. Just about the recording of the session, just to say that we'll be uploading it to YouTube afterwards.
Great. So the space that we're looking at now is the roof of the tower. So this is the space that I mentioned before where we could cite some artworks, but it is a paid part of the building. It's not accessible. And it's not kind of like the main space. But if you're interested in using this space, we could have something that was exhibited there that kind of relates to what else is happening in the building. And this is the middle floor of the tower, just to give you an idea of what that heritage exhibition looks like. Each floor has these information panels and these concrete staircases, which were put in the 1960s. So there's quite a lot of kind of brutalist architecture in the building, which you can see here. This is the ground floor of the tower, and that's the top floor. Should we have a look at the project space? Yeah, there we go. So this image is the project space, which I mentioned before, which is the space that sits below the main gallery. It is roughly, I'm just trying to think how long it is. I think it's a very similar length to the main gallery. It might even be exactly the same. I think it's 7.5, 8 meters long from where we're standing to that glass panels at the end. And I'd say I can't remember the exact measurements, but about 3 meters across, maybe 4. And the height is around just over 2 meters. We have got more accurate, I've got all of these measurements somewhere, but I think at this stage for a proposal, for an expression of interest, the kind of roundabout should be okay to go with. And then if you are shortlisted for the next part of the application process, we can provide kind of quite exact measurements and floor plans and things like that to help with kind of further planning. So yeah, this is the project space. This is image of the back of the project space. So you can see the glass looking onto the stairs that go up the tower. And this space is, sorry, James, maybe if we go back up to that other one. Thank you. The glass at the back there, we quite often paint a white screen onto that glass so that we can create somewhere to project onto. So this is a really nice space for projecting film. In a kind of conventional cinema setup, but also we can project onto the walls. We can kind of paint smaller screens or different size screens onto that glass for projections. There could be, we can do light installations. Anything that kind of needs a dark space, I would say that this is the better kind of space for that. It feels more intimate than the main gallery space, which is very wide and bright and open, but this is, enclosed. It's kind of quieter. It's a sort of softer space. Those are kind of all things to keep in mind. And as I mentioned earlier, this space, if you have an idea and you'd really like to kind of create, say it's just an installation that you want people to experience just in one room, then I would kind of say use the main gallery for the kind of main bit of the exhibition. And then you can either make something else which goes into the project space, or you could kind of use this space as a resources area. We could put kind of like, seating and bean bags and books and kind of references and things in here. So although, you could use both spaces for the kind of fully realised commission, or it could become a slightly different space that supports the work that's in the main gallery. We've sort of, done a bit of both in the past. Does anybody have any questions about the project space or about anything else to do with those two spaces in particular?
The wall space is available in the project gallery, correct?
Sorry, can you repeat that? I didn't quite hear.
Sorry, I was saying in the project gallery, am I right in saying you can put things onto the walls in that space?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. These walls are just, stud walls they've been put in. So, it's fine to hang. As you can see, we've hung some paintings on them in this image. Yeah. Great. So this is an image of the Crawford Room. As I mentioned, it's not wheelchair accessible, so we tend not to use it for long-term exhibitions. We do use it for kind of pop-up things and private hires, wedding ceremonies. Those kinds of things happen quite often in this space. But I thought I'd show it to kind of give you an idea of the full sense of the building. We have also had artists use this space for kind of mini residencies in the past. So if you want to come to Southampton and spend some time in the building, this space is probably more often than not available for you to kind of set up a small studio if you'd like, that kind of thing. Depending on our sort of diaries and calendars and things. I just wanted to kind of show you that space. It's really quite a beautiful one. This is the cafe. So we're now standing kind of underneath the project space. So where we were looking just now towards the kind of glass walls at the end of the project space, we're now looking at the same view, but the floor underneath. So you can see on the left, there's a bar, there's a concrete kind of bar and cafe area, and then tables. And then the entrance to the tower is right at the back on the right. And then there's an image looking the other way, which I think is just under this one, James. Yeah, so this is looking the opposite direction. And you can see somebody standing at front desk, greeting people as they've come in the front door. And then, as I said earlier, they can either take a left and go up to the project space and the main gallery to see the Contemporary Commission, or they can go towards where the camera is now and up through the tower and then down and out through the galleries. They're the two visitor routes. Any questions about any of that? Okay, great.
Oh, sorry, Mia.
Yeah.
Is there any covering on the roof at all? I hadn't realised we had roof accessibility, and that looks really exciting to me.
What do you mean? No, it's open to the elements.
Totally open.
Yeah.
Okay. fine. Carry on. Sorry.
No worries at all. Great. I think, James, unless you think there's any other images that we've missed, maybe that's kind of,
I think that's the place to stop. Yeah.
Yeah, been through the building. Great. Cool. As long as there aren't any more questions, I will start sharing my screen and we'll have a look at the brief. Let me do that then.
Yeah.
So let me just make sure I've got. Okay. Sorry, I'm just making sure that I've got myself and Sarah pinned. Okay. I think that would be fine. Yes, I can see us both, I think. Okay, so this is the brief. There's an opportunity summary page, which I won't go into because it's just summarising the rest of the brief. So we'll talk through the rest of the brief, which will cover this. There's just a note there on that front page to say that due to current resource and venue limitations, the Commission may not be suitable for artists with higher support needs or significant learning disabilities. We're working towards creating opportunities that better support those artists in the future. It's just given the timeframes and our kind of current resources, we can't kind of support that at the moment. And then the second page goes on to the brief. So I'm not going to kind of read this out. I'll just kind of summarize because there is an audio version of myself reading this text out on our YouTube for people to access if you need it. But to summarize, I think one of the things that we find exciting about God's House Tower is that the stories and the history is kind of not told through objects and collections in the way that it is in lots of museums. The heritage is really kind of for us to tell through artists, through artworks, through the people that come in and out of the building and the kind of new things that are happening. One of the things that we're kind of really conscious of is that we are working and we're kind of making things in this building that's got this history, and the kind of we feel the kind of weight of that history and the people who are written into it. And there are so many gaps where people aren't represented in that history. And so through the programme, we work with marginalised voices so that we can bring some of those stories to the fore. And we're really interested in what histories aren't written down. And actually that gives us quite a lot of exciting sort of artistic, creative ways of thinking about history, about the past, about fact and fiction. And I think it's a really interesting space to be working in because of that kind of intangible heritage that I think just exists in the building. And then over the last year, this part of the brief talks about the work that we've been doing on an accessibility action plan. So we've been working as a team on our sort of internal policy. And this commission is very much a part of us, alongside the announcement of whichever artists we commission for this opportunity. We're going to announce alongside their name this action plan and make it kind of public. And we've committed to a number of things in that action plan. It kind of covers quite a lot of things that we do as an organisation. It covers physical access. It covers recruitment, members of the team and how we look after the people that work for us. And there's all sorts of kind of elements to that. So this work sits alongside that. And I'm kind of interested, I think, in this artist, being involved in those conversations and kind of helping us to establish this policy and work with us to make sure that we're doing all the right things. I think one of the challenges is that obviously people's accessibility needs are all very different and very varied. So it's been a kind of learning curve putting the action plan together, and even in the process of putting this brief together, to think through all of the ways in which we can make it as accessible as possible has been really interesting. And we're hoping to build on that with this artist, whoever it is who wins the commission. There's a bit in here as well about supporting artists to make work that's important to them. And it doesn't necessarily have to be about your disability or your neurodivergence or your identity. It can just be about anything that you want to make work about. So that's just in there to kind of remind everybody that we're kind of really open to whatever ideas that you might have, and that is kind of what we find really exciting about commissioning artists. To kind of hear ideas that, well, every time we do this process, we're sort of really excited and surprised by the amazing ideas that people come up with. So it's very important to us that people feel they can pitch whatever ideas they like, and we are, very open-minded about what the commission looks like and what ideas are explored through the work. And there's just a link there at the bottom of this section to a virtual tour of God's House Tower, which you can access on our website. And if anybody doesn't have that link and needs it, let us know and we can send it in the chat, or we can kind of follow up with an email after this session. Any questions? Has anybody got any questions?
I was just going to ask Mia, where I have a full-time carer, does that make me ineligible because of, I think near the beginning something was said about the level of support to artists?
I think it would be something that we'd have to consider on an individual basis.
Okay.
But yeah, I think at the next stage.
Mine's just on the neurodivergent, not as in terms of a physical.
Yeah, I think the thing we'd have to consider is the sort of financial implication. I'm going to come on to it in a minute, but we do have an app we can use to kind of fund support workers and things, but it is kind of a bit limited.
Oh, she's already paid for.
Oh, great.
My support worker, because she's full-time with me regardless.
Yeah, I think that would be fine. I think
okay.
I think definitely we could support that. That'd be okay.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify that. Thank you, Mia.
No worries. Great. So if there aren't any more questions, I'll just pause slightly in case there are.
Mia, you are looking for one artist as opposed to a collective, several of us doing it?
It could be several. We're open to proposals from, collaborators, collectives. I think the thing to keep in mind would be this budget. And obviously the more people that are involved, we'd like to pay people properly. So that could be something that might become a challenge, but this budget really is for you to work out how you want to spend it. So I think if you can make it work within the budget, then we'd definitely be open to collaborations and collectives.
That's it. An artist being paid properly.
Can you imagine?
You're telling jokes now, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, as you can see, we do try to pay people properly. We've added this line in here about we'd like to expect we'd see at least kind of £2,000 of an artist fee included, and we added that in there because we've done this process a number of times, and in the past artists have kind of had these really brilliant, ambitious ideas, and they've submitted a proposal with a budget that doesn't cover any of their time, and it's obviously not okay. And so that's a reminder in there to just make sure that are paying themselves. But other than that kind of stipulation about that £2,000, the rest of the money is really yours to kind of spend in whatever way you want to realise your commission. I think there's kind of you could either, I think there's two sort of approaches, or I mean there's multiple approaches, but sometimes artists have an idea in mind and they can kind of see something, or they can kind of hear something that's going to happen in the main gallery, and they use a lot of their money to realise that, and so a lot of the money is spent on production of the artwork which goes into the space. And then other times that money is used, more of that money is used on the artist's time, or it can be used to pay other people. And it's very much a process of research and conversations. And actually, there's kind of less production budget in there because the thing that's realised is more, more temporary, more kind of, documentation of conversations rather than a kind of large, expensive artwork. So I think, the reason we haven't kind of gone into the budget too much is because it really depends on the artist and the project. It's kind of up to you about the rest of that money. And then there's just a bit in there about payment plans. So we'll work out, once we've commissioned an artist, we'll have a conversation. We'll work out what's best for the artist, and we can kind of be flexible about when that money goes to the artist and when invoices are sent and all of that kind of thing.
Are you expecting a breakdown of all of this in the proposal?
Not at this stage. At this stage, we're just accepting expressions of interest, and I'll kind of talk a bit about that just in a minute. There is a section here just on the Access Fund that I mentioned. So we have an Access Fund at A Space Arts, but that is for across all of our projects. So we also run studios, and we have a graduate program, and we run artist resources programs. So that Access Fund is limited, and so we have to kind of, as I mentioned before, on a case-to-case basis, we'll look to see if we can spend some of that money to support artists who might need it. I think particularly maybe in the next stage. So once we've received expressions of interest and we've shortlisted artists, it might be that we use this Access Fund to support an artist to develop a proposal for the commission. And then also it's there to be used during the commissioning process if there are kind of financial implications and things that we can kind of help with. So that's just a note about that. And yeah, it's something that kind of conversations about that fund will probably happen a bit further down the line.
Mia, just a couple of questions. Just to clarify the expression of interest stage, is there any expectation of a budget being shown, or is that not needed at this stage?
It's not needed at all.
Sure.
We've just got the budget there so that you're aware and that you know kind of with the parameters in which you're kind of working in.
And another question around budgets is, can some of the budget be used for paying artist mentors for support in developing the idea? That's totally fine. Great, that's it for now.
Fab. Okay, so section 5, how to apply. So as I mentioned, at this stage, we're asking for expressions of interest, and they can be written or recorded, and they can be sent as an email, voice note, or video. So the expression of interest should be around 500 words or less if written, or 3 minutes or less if recorded. And in that kind of expression of interest, we'd like to hear a kind of brief outline of your practice and how you feel it relates to God's House Tower. We'd like to hear what it is about the opportunity that interests you. And we'd like for you to include an outline of your idea for a new work. And it's quite important that at this stage that doesn't have to be detailed. So, if you've got an idea and actually the idea is a process and the idea is, something that you'd like to do and you're not sure what the end result's going to be, that's totally fine. Equally, as I mentioned before, if you've got this idea for something and you can kind of you know what that thing's going to be, it's also totally fine to kind of to explain that, and we'll kind of consider both approaches. Don't worry if it's kind of not fully formed. I think we're more interested at this stage to hear what you'd like to respond to, what interests you, what excites you, and how it relates to work that you've weren't done before and other kind of parts of your practice.
Just a quick question on word count. So is that 500 words to cover all of those points, or is that 500 per section?
That's 500 words to cover all of that.
And just another quick question that someone has asked that has said that it'd be really helpful to know roughly what the access budget is before planning the expression of interest.
Well, we've got, so the access budget, as I mentioned, is kind of shared across all of our programs, and I think in the current financial year, so up to April, it was £2,000. I think from April we're looking to put it up. I'm not quite sure what that figure is going to be, but yeah, it's difficult. I can kind of say that there's a number there, but as I said, it's shared, and we have to be kind of mindful because across the year we try to kind of spend that. We kind of have to kind of spread that out. Yeah, which is a challenge I'm sure that lots of arts organisations are facing. There's never really enough money. Cool. Any more questions on how to apply? Oh, sorry. I haven't mentioned the second bit of the expression of interest. So alongside the 500 words, there's also a link. We'd like to kind of see a link to your website or a portfolio of work of images. So up to 8 images of recent works or projects. And I guess there's a kind of bit in here about we'd like to see examples of kind of similar commissions or projects. And that can be something that you've done or something that you're currently working on. It's kind of, I think, given the time frame that we've got, we're looking for an artist who will be able to kind of pick this up and run with it. While we're open to people kind of earlier on in their career applying, I think then there just kind of has to be an example of something that you've done that can kind of show that that you have the experience to be able to kind of commit to the deadlines and deliver the work. So that's why that's in there.
Can you remind us when the actual deadline for work and the exhibition is, please?
Yes. So the timeline is just coming up. The deadline for an expression of interest is Monday, the 17th of February. And yeah, there's a timeline on the next page of this, so I'll run through that now if anybody else hasn't got any more questions.
There was just one, not so much a comment, but just a question rather, but a comment, just expressing that the 500 word limit might be quite difficult for some people with particular neurodivergencies. And I know, Mia, you've been able to jump on a call with some people or a Zoom. And so, yeah, if that is a concern of yours, then there is the option to do that with Mia. Yeah, just send Mia an email after the session, and she'll arrange something.
Yeah, and I'm happy to accept applications over the phone. We're kind of quite open to how the application gets made. What else was I going to say then? Yeah, it's difficult with word counts because as I said earlier, everyone's access needs are different, and some people really benefit from having a word count. Some people don't. It's something that we've done a lot. We've had a lot of conversation around, and actually, we feel like a word count is broadly helpful because part of the reason why we've structured the application process like this is because we don't want artists to have to do loads of work up front. We recognise at this stage with an expression of interest, you're kind of you're thinking, you're writing, you're working, and that work is unpaid. So the reason that we've kept the word count there is to make sure that people aren't, spending loads of time and not getting paid for it. So that's why it's kind of, we tried to be as light touch as we can be at this stage.
Right, no more questions at the moment.
Great. So there's my contact details there. Which are kind of available on this brief online on the YouTube videos as well. And just a point there about if you have any questions or you want to speak to me, please try and get in touch with me before Thursday the 13th of February, because I won't be working across the weekend before the deadline. So if you have any questions across the weekend, I won't be on hand to answer. So just a reminder that if you do want to speak to me, please do get in touch sooner rather than later. There's a section about online information sessions, which I won't go into because we're on one now. So we don't need to talk about that. And then just before we do run through the timeline, I just wanted to kind of give an overview of the shortlisting and interviewing process. So the deadline is on the 17th of February. We'll shortlist by the 24th, and then we'll select between 2 and maybe 5 artists, but probably we're aiming for 3 or 4. We'll ask those artists to develop a full proposal, and we'll pay them £250 to do this. And then at that stage, proposals will need to have a kind of expanded outline of the work, a detailed budget, timelines, plans for production. So that's when the kind of full proposal gets developed. And it's very much, we'll support you in doing that. I've built in some one-to-ones with all of the shortlisted artists so that I'm available if people need support. And we, at that stage, we will encourage people to kind of come and visit the building if they can in person, and we'll make bursaries available to cover travel costs. So that's at the next stage if you are shortlisted for that kind of second stage of the process. And I'll run through the timeline. Did I just see a question pop up in the chat?
Yeah, we've just got two. One is there accommodation support?
Yes, I think if we, I'm assuming you mean during that proposal development period. And I think, the travel bursary would probably pay for the travel, and then we'd probably use some of that Access Fund money to support people to stay overnight if they needed to.
And another question is that you mentioned that ideally we'd have artists that have experience with previous commissions, but would you be open to considering artists who have a good portfolio but have never been involved in a commission before?
Yeah, I think I mean, you can only share work that you have done and projects that you've been involved with. I think if we're really excited by the idea and there's some examples of projects in which we can see a kind of a way in which you're working that we feel like would be the way that we'd like to work with you, I think that would be fine. Sorry, it's late. I'm I'm finding it difficult to articulate all of my thoughts, but yes, I think apply, put an expression of interest in, and don't be too worried about whether you have the experience or whether you don't have at this stage, because I'd rather kind of hear from you. And I think one thing actually that I was just going to come on to is that even though this particular opportunity is for a commission which is going to happen this year, we're also interested through this process in just meeting some more artists. So, it might be that you submit your expression of interest and we don't feel like it's a good fit for this particular commission, but we might be then, we've got your name and your idea and your practice. We kind of know of you and have your kind of name on file. So it might be that something kind of comes out of that, and that we kind of work with you on another project in the future, or So I think at this stage, I just encourage you to put an expression of interest in, put your hat in the ring, so to speak.
Amir, sorry, just a bit of clarification, jumping back to the accommodation. Is there accommodation support during the production process?
Yeah, so it's something that might need to come out of the budget. So it depends really. Again, it would just be on a bit of a case by case basis. We can use some of the Access Fund to support with accommodation, but obviously that Access Fund is limited. So I think if you're needing to stay overnight, I think cost some of that into. I mean, we're talking about the next stage now because we're talking about budgets. I think at this stage we don't need to worry too much. I think if you are shortlisted for the next stage, we could have a conversation about how we could support and how much we could support, and we'd have to work it out at that point, I think.
Great, thank you. No more questions at the moment.
Cool. Great. So the timeline. So we're in an online information session now. So I won't start with those dates, but I will start, as I have been mentioning, with the 17th of February deadline for expression of interest. And that deadline is at 9 o'clock in the morning. And please do make sure you do get your applications in, because from 9 exactly, I'll be sitting down and reading through all the applications, and I need as much time as I can to make sure that I can get through them all and properly absorb everything before we make any decisions. So please do get them in promptly. Monday the 24th of February, shortlisted artists will be notified, And at that point, we'll ask artists to fill in an access and support rider so that we know better about your needs and so that we can support you properly through the proposal development stage. There'll be opportunities for one-to-one meetings with myself, talk about next steps, exactly what we're looking for, and to provide any support that might be needed. I'll also at that point share some examples of previous successful proposals and things to kind of support artists. Sometimes we work with artists who haven't done this kind of process before, and it's quite useful to see examples. So I'll do that. There's a 3-week proposal development period where we're encouraging people to visit the site and work up their ideas. And then the deadline for that proposal for those shortlisted artists is the 24th of March. Friday the 4th of April, we'll have interviews, which will take place in person or online. And we'll send questions in advance of that interview so that people can prepare properly. And then we'll make our final selection by Monday the 7th of April. Then we're into a production period, so I think there's about 4 months where there'll be kind of regular check-ins with the A-Space team. So I'll set up kind of monthly meetings, more if needed. Sometimes I meet with artists every other week if we need to during that production period, and I can support by putting people in touch with people locally or all sorts of ways in which I can support research and then production and then thinking through the exhibition install. The install takes place on the 11th of August to the 14th of August, and you'll be supported by myself. James will be around. We have 2 technicians who will work with to realise the exhibition, and then we'll launch the exhibition on Friday the 15th of August from 6 till 9 p.m. Then the exhibition runs from Friday the 15th of August to Sunday the 4th of October. And in October, we'll do evaluation. And it'll be all over so quickly before we know it. Does anybody have any questions about the timeline, any of those dates or deadlines? Anything you want to clarify?
Is any of the work that's produced? Oh, you're breaking up. No.
Oh, I think we've got 2 people trying to talk at the same time.
I'll be quiet.
I'm sorry. I'll let you go first.
Oh, I'm really sorry. We can't quite hear you.
We can't quite hear you. Can you hear me now?
No, it's breaking up quite badly.
No. Can I quickly interject with my question?
Yeah.
My question was going to be, for whoever is successful, if they produce, I don't know, taking random numbers, say they produce 5 pieces of work, at the end of the exhibition, does the gallery, do you own the work at the end of it, or does the artist own the work? What happens at the end?
The artist retains all ownership and copyright of the work. So yeah, the work would go back to the artist.
Okay. You don't sell any of the work?
No, we're not a commercial gallery. So it's we're publicly funded. So we commission work and then it belongs to
returns to the artist. Thank you.
No worries.
Sorry, just clarifying.
Yeah, no worries. That's all good.
Just got a question from Anna. Anna, you might jump on off the microphone if just to clarify, I've got this wrong, but have you an audience in mind? I'm guessing, is that an audience for the commission itself and the site?
I think our audiences are quite broad. Unlike other sort of contemporary art spaces where some contemporary art spaces have a very predominantly kind of visual arts audience. I think because we're also a heritage venue, we have lots of heritage audiences, but we also have people who come in to use the cafe, to use the community library, or they come in for events. We host quite a lot of music events at God's House Tower. So yeah, our audiences in general are quite broad. I wouldn't say that we have a specific audience in mind. obviously it depends on the work that we commission. It might kind of it might be particularly relevant for a certain group or, for certain people. And we'll make kind of efforts, I think, if we'll make efforts to try and reach those audiences and grow those audiences through the commission. But yeah, not on any kind of specific audience in mind at the moment.
Great, thank you. And a question asking, what level of community work are you expecting? For example, workshops and talks.
So we're not sort of expecting any. I think it would be totally fine to come and do a project and not have too much community engagement. It's not a kind of prerequisite, but we do usually have a kind of schedule of events that take place across the time that we're hosting a commission. So we usually do an artist voices event where the artist has a conversation with two other artists or art workers or collaborators, and we usually do them online. So just an in-conversation sort of artist talk. We usually host a creative writing workshop and a book club, and they're run by independent facilitators who come into the space and respond to the commission, who, they might meet with the artist to kind of develop some ideas, but they'll be independently run by facilitators and by us. We usually ask the artists to come and speak at the launch events. And yeah, between that, some artists want to do that kind of work and it's kind of integral to their practice or to the commission. So there's also opportunity for artists to do more of that kind of work if they want to, but it's not an expectation as such.
Can I check in something?
Yes. Yeah,
I just prefer my video to be off, if that's okay.
That's fine. Yeah.
Is this for artists that are new and sorry, I joined a bit late, so how can I connect again? Because I have a few questions.
So we're going to be putting the recording of this onto our YouTube, and we can share that with you after this. And then potentially, maybe if you want to watch that recording, and afterwards, if you still have questions, maybe get in touch with me, and we can set up a call or something to do a follow up, if that's okay.
Yes, please, Mia. Art is what I'm looking at, and I will be very, very grateful.
Yeah, no worries. We can send you this recording and then let me know if you have any further thoughts or questions, and we can chat separately.
Could you do that in an email?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I see your email. I send it to you. Is that okay?
Yeah, so you'll have signed up for this session via Eventbrite. So
yes.
we'll contact everybody who's on this call afterwards, and we'll share the recording and we'll share some extra resources with you then.
Amazing, because I'm very interested and I'd like to be involved.
Great. Yeah, just get in touch afterwards and we can have a conversation. That's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Okay, brilliant. So in the appendix, we've got an organisational overview. So I am aware that we're reaching an hour now, so I'm just going to try and keep this brief. But A-Space Arts was established in around the year 2000, and it was initially, it was by artists for artists. It's kind of historically a sort of artist-led organisation, and we started off with gallery spaces and studios. So we run the Arches Studios in Southampton, which has been going for 20 years now. We have God's House Tower, which is our primary venue that we've been talking about this evening. And we also have the RIPE programme, which is our graduate scheme. And artist development is at the heart of all of what we do. So it's kind of the root of the organisation, and it's what we do through all of our programmes. God's House Tower, I've already talked about extensively, so I won't go into that. And then there's two sections here. So we've got anti-racism and climate action. which are two parts of our work that we've been developing and working on alongside our access work. So there's more information about that on our website. But yeah, we've been developing action plans, and we've been programming global majority artists and climate work for the last couple of years now. So if you're interested in that, please head to our website, or you can talk to me further about it after the call. And then there's a section here on the short history of God's House Tower, which again, I'm not going to go too much into. It's available here on the brief, and it's available on our YouTube channel as an audio recording. There is a book about God's House Tower, which is called Powder, Prisoners and Painters, which is available to buy online. We'll send you a link to that at the end of the video if you're interested in finding out more. But I would say at this stage, as I mentioned earlier, we kind of don't want us to put too much work into this at this stage, because it's only an expression of interest. So I think a broad understanding of the history with an idea of where you'd like to research is probably enough at this stage. So don't worry about trying to understand the whole history of the building, because it's long. There's a lot of it. There's a bit here about our current situation. So the A-Space team has kind of 8 members of staff. We have 9 front of house staff members, and we have 10 volunteers at God's House Tower. There's lots of artists that we're in touch with through our studios and through our other programs. And we also have kind of, lots of historians and kind of local, academics, researchers, people that we are in touch with as well. So there's lots of kind of ways in which we can put you in touch with people that might be useful for this commission. And I think that's probably about it. We've talked a lot about the building and sort of spaces and considerations. So yeah, I'm not going to go too far into that. I think we've probably covered all of the different spaces and the restrictions, as I mentioned, which is kind of mostly about the fabric of the building and the walls and the spaces, which we can't, that we can't drill into. And that's, I think that's it. I might just come off this screen share so that we can all see each other. And if there are any more questions, we can get through those. And then we can wrap up.
Just to say, someone's asked for a link to the book, and we'll send through that link along with some other places to do further research in the email afterwards to everyone that's attended.
Thank you.
Great. Any more for any more? Any more questions?
Me, please. When do you want me to speak to you?
So we're going to send a recording of this session and everything else. Maybe just take some time to have a look at that. Feel free to send me an email tomorrow, and we can set up a conversation once you've kind of read through the brief and you've
Yeah. Okay, Mia. Yeah. Thank you.
Great. No worries at all.
There was just someone asking if we're going to send the document, which is the brief, which, yes, we can send that through as well in the email.
Fantastic. Great.
Mia, am I allowed to bring a camera and just record the spaces?
Yeah. Of course.
Yeah, no, that's great. And it's open tomorrow at God's House Tower, isn't it?
Yeah, we're open tomorrow, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Sunday, yeah, no, that'd be cool. Thank you for your time.
Yeah,
it's greatly appreciated.
No worries at all. Thank you everyone for coming. I'm really looking forward to receiving some expressions of interest. I love this part of the commissioning process, because I get to kind of meet loads of new artists and hear all about all their businesses.
Oh, what fun we shall have.
Are you there tomorrow, Mia? What are the timings?
We're open tomorrow from 10 till 5. And again on Saturday 10 till 5. And then on Sundays it's 10 till 4.
Sorry, say that as slower, please. Saturday 10 to 4.
Saturday 10 to 5. And then Sunday 10 till 4.
Got it. Okay. So I can maybe, it's just easier for me to speak in face to face, maybe.
Yeah, if you send me an email tomorrow, I can find a time when I'm free. I'm quite busy tomorrow, so I
Sure,
don't.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll set something up for next week. Maybe that's probably.
Yeah. Let's do that. Yeah, because I have a few appointments, hospital appointments, etc. So yeah.
Yeah, great. Yeah, we'll find a time to talk. No worries.
Super.
It's a lovely building.
Oh, brilliant.
I went last week, and your docents who work there are super lovely people, really nice.
Thank you. That's always lovely to hear. Great.
Right, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you. Thanks, the team.
Thank you.
I'm so grateful. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
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 Everyone. I've got to jump off.
Okay. Yeah. No worries. Thank you, Sarah. Thanks for everything. And yeah, if you just send us your invoice, we'll get that paid. Great.
No, just realised I was on mute. No, thank you very much. Yeah,
No
I wish I
worries.
could be for you, but unfortunately I've got to live.
No worries at all. Cool.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Sarah. Bye-bye.
Bye.